If you're looking for tips to help you run centers smoothly in your classroom, then you're in the right place because I'm going to share with you 5 of my best tips that helped me not lose my mind when I was running centers in my classroom. I'm Brenda Tejeda and I taught for 17 years, mostly in kindergarten and first grade. I always loved finding new ways to engage my students in learning to read and write, and now I love sharing my tips and experience with busy teachers like you. So today I'm going to be sharing 5 tips to help you not lose your mind when you're running centers in your classroom. Let's get started with tip number 1. Having 5 anchor centers. Now there are so many different centers that you can do, and I know that you see lots of activities that you can incorporate in your classroom. Some of them look super fun and you want your students to experience them. But I recommend that you stick to 5 main centers that you have, and then each week you can just switch out the activity. But having 5 centers not only saves you time, it also helps kids learn the routine so that they don't have to keep coming to you with questions about how to do a new center. My 5 anchor centers in my classroom were usually my sight word center, my writing center, my word work center, a reading center, and a listening center. Now occasionally I'd switch something up and I would put a science center in there, or a math center, or a poetry center, but usually I had those 5 centers and every week I'd just switch the words or the activity that they had to do. Tip number 2 is to differentiate. We all know our students are not on the same level, and so some of them might get bored with an activity, some of them might find an activity too difficult for them, and so it's important to differentiate so that all your students are actually learning during centers. I love to use activities that have built-in differentiation. For example, in a writing center, you might have an activity where students have to label or write sentences. Some kids might label a picture with the beginning sound. You'll also have students who can label using all of the sounds in the word, and some students might be ready for writing sentences. And so an activity like that would be so helpful because you don't have to switch it up for your advanced students or students who need extra support because this already has built-in differentiation. It's not always possible to find activities with built-in differentiation, so when I do have to switch an activity up, I like to use this 3-drawer bin. And I color code the drawers so that each group knows exactly which drawer they need to work on. Step number 3 is to include directions and a finished sample of what their work might look like when they're done. Now, especially in kindergarten and first grade, they need explicit step-by-step directions, even if it's an activity that you've already done whole group, because there are going to be some students who still don't remember what to do. So I like to use one of those plastic stands and I just slip in a piece of paper with numbered directions to make it easier for them. I also like to include a finished sample of what their work could look like when they're done. Now they know not to copy mine because they're expected to have different completed result than mine, but it just gives them an idea of what to do and make sure that they do each step of the assignment. Tip number 4, unfinished work. You're always going to have students who don't get to complete their assignments. Now, whether they got pulled by another teacher, or they had to go to the nurse, they got picked up early, or maybe they were just fooling around and didn't get to finish. You're always going to have that situation. And so when I first started, I had one unfinished work basket, and all the students would put any unfinished work that they had in there. As you can imagine, that was a nightmare when students had to find their work to finish. So I came up with a basket system. Each table had their own basket, and in each basket, each student had their own folder. Now this was super helpful because at the end of centers, students could just go to their basket, find their folder, and stick their work in there. And then when they had extra time, maybe in the morning when they came in, maybe they finished something else early, they can go grab their folder and finish anything that was in there. This was also helpful to me because just by looking at somebody's folder, I can see if this happened frequently and I needed to keep track and check up on that student to finish their work more often. Tip number 5, early finishers. So on the other hand, you have students who usually finish their work super early and they have extra time. In my classroom, students knew that they could always take out their sight word flashcards, take out their reading book baggies, work on their writing journal, or respond to a book that they were reading. But I also like to have an early finisher station with activities that we had done whole groups so they always knew how to do these. That's super important. You don't want to have something new at an early finisher center because then you're going to have kids coming up to you with questions on how to do those. So at my early finisher station, I usually had about 3 to 4 activities that students could choose from. I always like to have a basket of books with books on the theme that we were currently studying. Sticker Story is really great because all I had to do each week is make sure that we had enough stationery there and switch out the stickers if we needed to. A lot of the time stickers would be great for a few weeks or even a month if it was a seasonal thing, so I wouldn't have to switch them up as often, which is another great tip. In your early finisher station, you want to have something that you don't have to change frequently, because you already have enough to worry about with prepping your 5 main centers. You don't want to add even more to that. So try to keep things that you already have you already have modeled whole group with the class, everybody knows how to do, and you don't have to switch as frequently. So there you go, 5 of my best tips to help you run your centers smoothly. Make sure you tell me below if you're going to try any of them or if you have your own tips to share. And make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any future videos. Now, school should be fun for you too, so till next time, have fun teaching.